You're a comedian. I'm sure they'd give it to you.
Yeah. Hilarious people need phones.
You need phone. They need conversations to be recorded at all times.
Yeah, no, I'm a comedian. Nobody calls me. I don't have friends.
Oh,
I need a phone. I need a phone less than anyone.
That's probably true. You just go out at night, and that's your social life.
Yeah, exactly. I try. See, I don't like talking on the phone at all. Like, I'm terrible at it. I'm not good at it because it's like, especially if it's like people that I don't know, because like people not for some reason, I know why. People expect comedians to always be hilarious.
Yeah,
and
they do.
And for the most part, comedians don't. It's like if you're a journalist, like when you're just out hanging out with your friends, you're not like writing down what they say and writing articles about it. You know what I mean? You just want to like chill out, you know. But it's like people with comedians, they expect that they're always like going to do their hour special like at dinner.
That's why it's tough to be Robin Williams, because everybody wants him to be himself, and he can't do it all the time.
That is hilarious. He's the opposite. He's actually very serious and very smart and very like politically like, you know, aware and passionate, oddly.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen interviews with him where he's, you know, pretty straightforward. He's not like jumping up and down. So you're like, oh, all right.
Then he gets possessed.
Yeah.
And like has to do impressions.
I know, it's sort of weird because he's
from
been
what
on
I gather, like I worked with him, I did a show with him recently. It doesn't seem like he's in control of his gift. Like he's so gifted that he just can't even like it doesn't ever turn off. Like he can.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean? Most people have to actively like apply their talent. He's like too talented to survive.
There's an old special he did like in the 70s, which was on Comedy Central like 15 years ago, and it's like him when he's like doing Mark and Mindy, but he's doing stand-up, and like he goes on stage, the small club, and like he doesn't really, like his whole act is not, it's just like him walking around the audience, so it's like he doesn't actually do material, he just like kind of grabs people, and it's really impressive. He doesn't do that anymore because he sort of has like, he has his material, but like he like climbs in the balcony just like talking to people, so it's really impressive. He's such a
gifted improv guy. Like, for the most part, it's like I used to think that improv was what people did when they couldn't do stand-up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they wanted to be on stage, but were, like, too lazy to write, so would just, like, goof off with their friends and, like, you know what I mean? Like, to me, I used to think that improv was just, like, guessing. It's like, let's, like, I never wanted to go to a show and be like, hey, let's go watch people guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like hit or like trial and error. And then I realized from Robin Williams and from I don't know if you know Rob Hubel and Paul Scheer, and like
I do.
Yeah, they're in they're in Human Giant. Like watching them made me realize like, oh my God, like improv is a real like gift. It's a skill. It's something you hone. It's something that not everybody can do. Because I feel like everybody thinks they can do improv. You know?
Yeah.
Like, they're like, oh, that's easy. Like, I'm funny off the cuff all the time, but that's not that simple. You know, and I did the show with Robin Williams and Rick Overton near San Francisco, and we were just, like, messing around doing improv afterwards, and it was, like, unbelievable to watch his mind. Like, it was just, he was always a step ahead, going in and out of the most insane impressions and characters. Like, it was, like, staggering, like, mind-bogglingly insane. I started doing stand-up about 5 years ago. I moved out to Los Angeles, and I was doing, like, a couple comedy shows, like TV shows, before I was actually doing stand-up. Like, I did Punk'd on MTV, and then I did this show called Best Week Ever on VH1 that a lot of comedians were doing, Christian Finnegan and the aforementioned Paul Scheer, and a bunch of guys, Sherrod Small and Paul Tompkins, and, you know, so it was a lot of comedians. I wasn't a comedian yet, and then I kind of just segued into it kind of around that time.
So you're relatively new then, I guess.
Yes, I am. I guess you would call it that.
That's impressive, because...
Thank you.
Well, no, there's people who do it for like 10 years and they just suck, but...
Well, you know what? I mean, stand-up is really, it really is, you can only get better on stage when you're working, and so the more time you put into it, the more you get out of it. So it's like, you know, a lot of guys start out, or a lot of comics start out and they're going up twice a week, it's going to take you longer to get better. Like, I, out of the gate, was, like, really obsessive and was doing 2-3 spots a night and, like, killing myself for stage time and, you know, doing sometimes 4 open mics, like, around L.A., you know, from 6 in the afternoon until 2 in the morning, you know. So I think I kind of expedited it a little bit just because I was so obsessed.
You're like the Jay Leno of young female comedians.
Oh, my God. I guess.
I mean that in a good way, because
there's so many weird metaphors to be drawn from that, but I guess I'll take it.
In a good way. Not that I
the difference is I'm a terrible driver, and he's got 300 cars.
Oh. I don't think he's a good driver. He just owns a lot of cars.
He just has a lot of cars. Yeah, that's actually proof that you're a bad driver if you need to have that many.
I know. He's like, let me wreck a few, so I have a few left.
Yeah, he's like, I have a lot of backups. Yeah, so I kind of, you know, expedited it a little bit.
Guess so. Would you say it's tougher to be a female comic? Or?
You know, it's funny because, like, whenever people say that, I always want to just get clear. It's difficult being a comic, period, you know, because a lot of times it's like guy comics don't get the appreciation they need or deserve because everyone's like, well, being a female comic, that's hard, but being a guy comic's hard. So being any comic is hard. You know, being a female comic, and I always say, I don't think it's hard. I just think a lot of women, it is hard. All comedy's hard. But I think a lot of women don't necessarily gravitate towards it and choose it because it is such a full-time job and it is such a sacrifice, a time sacrifice and a life sacrifice. I mean, you know, so, you know, my schedule right now is starting at 7 o'clock until, you know, 1 in the morning. Every single night I'm doing stand-up. I'm going to be on the road 6 days a week for the next 4 months. I'll be home like 1 day a week. So it's like, I think guys would accept that schedule more readily than women. So I think a lot of women just don't choose it. It's not that they fail at it. They just don't necessarily see it as something that they would enjoy because they want, you know, relationships and aren't dead inside like me. Another reason I think that women, you know, there's a you know, widely accepted theory that women are not as good, is that, you know, women get exposure for the most part, I think, before they're ready. Like, you know, it takes a long time to get good at comedy. You know, it takes a really long time to find your voice and to get comfortable on stage and to have a good, solid, you know, hour. And, you know, even when you think you're good, you're not. You know, like at the 3-4, you know, year mark, everyone thinks they're good, and then they realize, oh, shit, I only have 15 minutes. That's not, you know, now I got to write an hour. It's very hard. So I think women, because people are like, oh, it's a woman, they get exposure before they're ready. So, you know, that a lot of times they're not given a fair chance to get good before people look at them, you know, so everybody sucks 2 years in, you know, guys and girls, but everyone's not looking at the guy as closely as they're looking at the girl. You know, so I think that that's part of the problem. They get opportunities quicker, they get showcases quicker, they get, you know, stage time sometimes quicker because they're a girl and they're not ready to be showcased yet. So I think that's kind of how that started.
I see. That was
but on the flip side, you know, there are so many amazing female. It's such an amazing time to be a female comedian. There are so many ones that are doing so well. So I think it is getting easier and easier in terms of, I don't think, you know, Chelsea Handler is a great example of someone who's, you know, putting a lot of female comics on TV a lot, and they're funny. So I think I'm noticing less groans when I see a woman go on stage now. Like, oh, here we go. You know?
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
I see. Would you say it's tough to be on the road, or is it something you get used to?
You know, it's something I'm getting used to. It's not something you can ever really get used to because every time you get used to it, you go to a new town or a new hotel or encounter a new, like, insane road thing. You know, it's incredibly rewarding because of the amount of stage time you get. I mean, you get, you know, 2 hours a night sometimes. If you're doing 3 shows, 3.5, 4 hours a night, so I'm getting ready for an hour special. So to me, it's completely worth it. If I wasn't getting ready to do my hour special, I would definitely not be on the road as much because it does get really hard, you know, and it's just exhausting, all the traveling. However, I get so much work done when I'm on the road because I'm just, like, isolated in a hotel room and I, like, love it. So I actually do like it once I'm there. It's just the getting there. And it's always like the third day that you start going crazy, like Jack Nicholson in The Shining. It's like, or the last day I'm there. It's like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday I'm good, and then Sunday I wake up and all of a sudden I'm just like some Mommy Dearest comes out and I like go a little bit insane, you know? Because when you're just like in a hotel room, like, you know, sometimes in the middle of nowhere for 6 days, it'll drive you nuts.
I see. All right.
You know, but it's good because it's like, you know, the strongest comics, I think, have the most experiences. So the more cities you go to and the more people you meet and the more circumstances you encounter, the more, you know, material I think you have. So
okay.
It's good. Yeah. And it's also important to know, I think that, you know, if you're just in New York or just in LA, I don't think you really know what the majority of people are like. You know, it's important to know that you can relate to, like, everyone, not just New York, just LA. So it's always, you know, good to go to, you know, like this month I'll be in, you know, Chicago, Boston, Michigan, Houston, like, and to be able to make all those cities laugh, you're like, okay, I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
If all walks of life and all regions are work, because if you're doing something on TV, everyone's watching that, not just New York and LA.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. Let's see. What do you have a favorite topic, or you don't really care?
That I talk about on stage?
Yeah. Like, I mean, I know you talk about relationships, but is that like you just get
I'm actually very picky about what I talk about on stage. And you know, it's like I think about, you know, jokes about politics or, you know, airplanes or whatever, but that's not what I'm interested in talking about on stage. I really just want to focus on sex and relationships. And my album described it pretty well. He said, I thought it was cool. He said, Whitney explores the games that men and women play with each other, which I thought was actually kind of spot on. I basically want to pick up where Sex and the City left off with my stand-up. Like, everything that Sex and the City was talking about and addressing, that's what I want to focus on in my stand-up. So even if I think of jokes about other things, I'm really not interested in putting them in my act.
I see.
So I'm really, really picky about it.
Well, that's probably good. I mean, that would help you.
I think it's good because it's just like, you know, number one, I mean, the key is only talk about things that interest you. So it's like airplanes just don't interest me. Like, you know, politics interests me, but it's not like something that I really want to dig deep into. It's too frustrating for me. It's not funny. Politics aren't funny to me. It's just like depressing. Like, to me, and I also want people to be able to say, oh, Whitney Cummings is in town, and like know exactly what they're going to get. You know, Kathy Griffin, you know you're going to get celebrity stories, right? You know, Sarah Silverman, you know you're going to get, you know, edgy, really funny, you know, holy shit comedy, you know. So, and then with me, you know, you're going to get, and it shows in the kind of people that come see me now. I get a lot of girls' nights and bachelorette parties and, you know, miserable boyfriends who are getting dragged along.
I see.
You know, but I think fortunately it appeals. You know, guys, you know, I get a lot of guys that come to and really, really enjoy it. I don't just like slam men or just do it from a women's, you know, perspective too. So hopefully it appeals to everybody. But yeah, I really do try to hone in on that and be consistent.
I see. Do you know Sarah Silverman, or you just have not?
I do. I don't know her like super well. Like, I've met her a bunch of times and I like love her. She's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah, she's really
she's innovative.
She's innovative, she's original, and, you know, something I admire about Sarah so much, and a lot of times I'm scared, like in interviews or whatever, to talk about Sarah, because I think a lot of people, and I don't think people really say this anymore now that they know my material, but it's like people always, like, any girl who's starting out gets like, oh, what are you, Sarah Silverman? Like, you get, because she's just, like, the biggest, you know? And
yeah, well, she's a big name who has, like, she has a niche thing, so it's like, oh.
She has because it's like, and that's, you always are going to be compared to, you know, Sarah Silverman, so it's like, so I don't really get that anymore, so now I feel like I can openly say that she's inspires me and that I love her, because before I worried that people were like, oh, she's trying to be her, or she's trying to write like her, whereas now that people know my material, they know that that's not the case at all. But Sarah is so awesome and inspiring because she did it her way. Like she never compromised her vision and what she wanted to do. Like she never went clean just to do TV sets. She never sacrificed what she believed in, because a lot of comics who are edgy will, write a bunch of clean stuff just to get on TV. Like she's done it her way and has never compromised. And from what I understand, turned out a lot of opportunities because she didn't want to, sacrifice her vision.
Mhm. All right.
You know?
I do know.
You do know. Do you?
I know exactly.
You are hilarious.